Welcome to Beaver Stadium. I'm Thomas Frank Carr. This is the Penn State Football Tailgate Show on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel and, of course, on 99.5 The Bus and Bigfoot Country Legends. Penn State Football putting the final touches on spring practice 2025 in about an hour. Of course, we're going to get you everything caught up with the game, the team's progress through spring for the last month. We're going to break it all down in the next hour, although we would need probably an hour and a half, 2 hours, maybe all day to talk about all the things we've learned this spring. We're going to try and hit the highlights, get everybody caught up. Maybe if you're listening at your tailgate, you have been checked out of football for a little bit, and you're like, hey, I'm at the game. We're going to get you covered. Of course, for our Blue White Illustrated fans that have been here for the whole thing, we're going to do a little bit of recap, but of course, we're going to be talking about things as in-depth as we always do here on the YouTube channel. We're also expecting to give you a breakdown of the game, what to expect, the players to watch if you're going to be going into the game, and of course, how the blue and white rosters are all broken down. You should definitely, if you are here on the YouTube channel and you're not going to be watching the game, you need to listen to it on 99.5 The Bus, which you can find at 7 Mountains Media on the internet. You can listen to a live stream of the game, so you can still be connected to your Nittany Lions today to feel what's going on in the stadium. We're getting you prepared for all of that. But the point of all of this, the pursuit of a Big Ten and national championship title. Penn State got a shot in the arm this morning towards those hopes. We're going to get into that right now. Of course, I'm joined by producer Kyle Leff. Kyle of 7 Mountains Media. He's a Syracuse alum.
I am. Which
works out well because this morning, Penn State football officially secured the commitment of top portal target Traber Pena. Kyle, welcome.
Thank you for having me, T. Frank. I'm happy to be here. And I did go to Syracuse. I was a Syracuse student at the same time. I went to the Orange up there in upstate New York, middle of Nowheresville. And he had some great quarterbacks. He had, the great Tommy DeVito as a quarterback his freshman year, the great man from New York Giants. He also had Garrett Schrader. No one remembers him. And he also had Kyle McCord, great quarterback.
That last one seemed to work out pretty well.
The last one worked out really well. And this past season, he was incredible. Caught about 1,000 yards for Syracuse. He used to return punts and kicks for the Orange. Now he's going to make his way down here to probably the best quarterback he's had, Drew Aller.
Yeah, definitely, and I think that was a big part of why he wanted to join the Nittany Lions. You look at the offenses that he was interested in joining, where he went to. He did not actually, according to Pete Nakos of On3, he did not actually make it to Miami. He didn't go down to visit Carson Beck in the Miami Hurricane. Penn State, Drew Aller, a big reason why Traber Pena visited here first, why he decided ultimately to commit here to the Nittany Lions in the spring portal. And this is a big thing. This is a big thing for the Penn State depth chart. I did a roster reset over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com earlier today after the news broke. Drew Aller now has 3 big boy professional wide receivers.
Yes.
You look at what Kyron Hudson's able to do. He is a contested catch and guy you can get over the middle sort of receiver, big physical player. He's going to fight for the ball with defensive backs. You've got Devontae Ross, who's got pretty good hands. He catches the ball very well. Maybe not as good of a contested catch player, but he's got that vertical stretch ability. Not the biggest guy, not the fastest guy, but a really good route runner and somebody who proved he can be a deep threat even against teams like Iowa and Big Ten or Power 5 teams. And now you've got Traber Pena, who's going to line up in a slot and give Drew Aller an ultra-reliable route runner. The main thing, I was watching his film, watching your Syracuse offense. First off, they threw the ball 100 more times than any other program in the country last year in terms of called dropbacks. So he got a lot of work last year, but a lot of that was in that formula of the offense, kind of formulaic, underneath stuff. But he's a very, very good wide receiver. He's going to step into the slot and be an ultra-reliable open target for Drew Aller and catch a lot of balls. He's going to be able to get first downs. The question is, what is the upside of this receiving core, and how does this, in a certain situation, certain sense, they've got a lot of the similar characteristics.
Yes.
Really good wide receivers. I don't know that they have a ton of elite talent from the... Nobody's going to out-athlete anybody amongst these 3 starters.
But in the case of Traber Pena, what he's going to bring to this team, and he may not be the greatest athlete, he may not be Jeremiah Smith. No one is Jeremiah Smith. Sure. He will be the safety net, which is what he was for Kyle McCord all last season. McCord had great receivers in Jackson Meeks, former Georgia athlete. He also had Aronde Gaston Jr., who's going to get drafted in the NFL draft at some point today in rounds 5 and 6, tight end. Huge 6'5", big catch radius.
Yep.
Traber Pena was the guy in the slot. he just caught everything.
Yep.
Kyle McCord was like, I have no one open. Trevor, can you catch this for me and just go?
Yep.
That was what he did all season long after 10 yards of catch for the Orange. And that is what he's here to do, is just be a reliable target because in recent seasons,
Yep.
Aller hasn't had a guy where you can always know, even if I throw it towards him, if he's not open, he'll make a play for it.
Well, here's the important point. He did, but last year that was a tight end. That was Tyler Warren, who went in the top 15 of the NFL draft yesterday. So having a receiver be able to do that, the thing that I found interesting was you watch the way he was able to play from the slot. A lot of underneath stuff, a lot of short, and then catch and run. I don't know that he's necessarily a guy that's going to get a lot of yards after the catch. So you look at some of his catch numbers and some of the things that he did at Syracuse where he was able to get about 400 yards after the catch. A lot of that was from volume. He's not a guy that when you watch the film, there's not a lot of broken tackles. He's somebody who is going to get you, the way I described it earlier, he's going to get you all the yards that are there and maybe one or two more. But that's valuable, especially if it's 3rd and 6. He catches it at 5. He gets you that 6th yard. So this is kind of it's kind of that situation where you're looking for the ability to piece together a receiving core in the aggregate, a number one receiver in the aggregate. But the thing where I started with that is that if you're looking for a guy to do what he did last year with Penn State, I don't necessarily know that he's going to be that guy for Penn State because in the short area, they've got tight ends and running backs for those plays. He's going to have to show a little bit more of that downfield receiving threat. There's a lot of really good stuff. So when I say a professional receiver, he's able to create separation. He's not the biggest guy in the world. He's listed at 6 foot.
Yeah.
Probably closer to 5'10". Yeah. Not the strongest guy in the world. I would say the one area where I'm a little concerned about this offense is if you go up against a let them play Big Ten officiating crew and the other side is a bunch of big physical corners, that could still be an issue for this group because both Ross and Pena do struggle a little bit. Ross at the catch point when he's fought with. Now, in the Penn State strength program, I think that's gonna improve for him. With Pena, he hasn't had a chance to be here, so he's going to be kind of plug and play as he is in my mind, at least. Of course, he'll have some time to get into that strength and conditioning program, but he's going to have to.
Guys to go against, though.
What's that?
Syracuse, he had some guys to go against. He went against Andre Sisco, went against Garrett Williams, Ifeanyi Melifonwu. All of them are now in the NFL.
Yeah.
So he's been going up against guys who are good. Regardless, in our NFL athletes, they're just go now with, I believe, the New York Jets on a one-year deal. So he's going against guys in practice, and he also can separate really well when it comes to the intermediate routes.
Yeah.
He's good at.
Yep.
He was a kick and punt returner for a while at Syracuse, so he does have the speed to break away. He's not the fastest guy in the world.
Yeah.
But he can do something downfield for you. He'll return a kick. I was a Syracuse student when he did. I was proud of that. So,
wait, did you go to Syracuse?
What?
Oh, man.
Well, he did return a kick, returned 4 touchdowns. He did that for the first 2 years at Syracuse. Then, of course, he became more of a receiver. He was injured in 2023, but now he's here. He's healthy. And he is going to give something different to this offense.
Yeah.
Yes, Ross Hudson, you mentioned great officiating in terms of how can he use the physicality. We'll have to see.
Yeah.
But he wasn't going up against nobodies. This is not him going from a school in the lower levels of D1. This is him going from the ACC.
This is not the same situation that Devontae Ross had coming from Troy. Yeah, so I think that's fair. If you're watching here on the YouTube channel, the ghosts that you see in front of you, live outside of the Beaver Stadium in the background, we're in front of the Bryce Jordan Center. I'm Thomas Frank Carr. This is Kyle Leff, Seven Mountains Media. We're talking about Trevor Pena here to start the Penn State Football Tailgate Show, joining the Nittany Lions. I think, going back to what you just said, there's a lot of really good stuff on tape. He just wasn't used as the vertical threat from the slot. He wasn't the guy that was, but there are those plays where he's running vertical routes, and that's really what Andy Kolnicki likes to do in this offense. We'll see how all of this changes in the adaptations from one year to the other, but I do think that's going to be a big part of what he needs to do on this offense is be able to run some of those down the field. And you mentioned those intermediate routes, 15 yards down the field, getting open. I think that's a big part of this. So when you talk about where he fits into the offense, I think he's a pure slot. I think you want him in the slot, and you have your now full 3 complement of receivers. You have your X receiver in Kyron Hudson. You have your Z receiver who can play in the slot in Devontae Ross, and then you have your wide receiver, your slot receiver, who's going to get you those reliable targets over the middle, those reliable third down targets, those quick outs, things like that in Trevor Pena. There is a couple things we have to talk about, though.
Yes.
I think that, it's not just about Pena and who he is, it's also how he fits into the offense on the whole. And this group is more resilient, I think, than the last couple of years, where there shouldn't be those games. And I mentioned, like, the one thing I'm concerned about. But generally, this group has proven more resiliency against different coverages. You know, you watch Pena versus zone and man, very, consistent against both. Kyron Hudson, I know there's some questions about his drops from USC, but I see that more as he had so many contested coverage plays because he was doing a lot of the dirty work in that offense. I think there's more design for these guys, for Andy Kotelnicki. But then it comes down to what happens beyond those guys, and that's where I think Pena doesn't solve one of the biggest problems I have with this group, which leads back to my original problem is, like, there's not a lot of size here. You've got Hudson. He's your size guy. You've got your tight ends. They're your size players. But if something were to happen to Kyron Hudson, I built out the depth chart. I don't have a backup X receiver.
That's where the exclamation mark comes in.
Yeah. There's going to be some moving around in the offense where you're going to have to massage that particular part of this when Kyron Hudson wants to come off the field. I think it's indicative of those young players on the roster to take a step and make sure that some of them play up to the level that we expect of them, after spring football. And to me, that is the conversation about Kobe Howard. And, I don't expect a lot from Matt Otten this year, and certainly not Lyric Samuel. But one of the guys, and I keep coming back to this, I don't want to harp on this too much if you've watched the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel, but Peter Gonzalez getting hurt last year is a big deal to me because you need those different types of bodies to fill out a roster and to fill out a depth chart and to fill out the different needs you have, and they don't have as many of those big guys that are ready to play on the outside. Long term, I do think they have a really strong core they're building, but right now, for 2025, this is a really good starting three. They got some pieces behind them that can fill in, but I think there are still... Trevor Pena doesn't solve every problem by joining the program.
There are still question marks to be had with this team in terms of the receiving core, but a lot of that, as we saw last season, they didn't have as talented a receiving core, was made up for with the other guys, with the running backs, the tight ends. And Penn State still has that in droves and seams, where Penn State has however many tight ends that are more talented and smart, whether it's Luke Reynolds, Rapplier, of course, have Nick Singleton, Canton Allen. There are enough other options where there's less question marks in the receiving core, and it's only helped by the fact that the tight ends and running backs are as strong as they are.
Yes, and so I think balance is the right word, and I got two words for you: balance and aggregate. Yes. And those are the two things that are going to resolve the passing game. The final thing I'll say here, I wrote about this at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. I think that you've got enough receivers that are, I don't want to say they were excuses, because they're legitimate reasons why the passing game had issues last year. But those are now, they should be, concluded. So Drew Aller, this is the year for him to prove it. There are fewer reasons why the passing game shouldn't succeed outside of the decisions he makes and the passes he throws. So throwing balls on time, on target, in rhythm, 4 yards after the catch, that's a big area for me, and we'll get into that here in just a minute when we get into the into the game proper. But we're going to get into all of that here on the Tailgate Show in just one moment, talking about all those things. But I just think, like, now's the time. They have reduce the number of variables, and now it's on them to go out and perform. And we're going to see how all of that happens, starting with the Blue-White game. But, of course, subscribe here to the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel. Get all this information you would have known about Trevor Pena and more in depth and had these conversations earlier if you joined BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, which you can do for just $1 for the first week to try us out. And then, of course, you can sign up for the year to get all that information afterwards, whether it is the reporting, the intel from the national level and from the local level. We want to give you that comprehensive look at Penn State football. We got the analysis, the insight, the film study, all that at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. And of course, like the video and subscribe here to the YouTube channel if you would not mind. Okay, so I think we're going to take a break if we don't blow away here, and we'll be back with more. We're breaking down the Blue-White game here on the Penn State Football Tailgate Show from Blue White Illustrated and 99.5 The Bus, which is currently has a tent on top of it.
It's coming down. Thank you.
welcome back to the Penn State Football Tailgate Show. I'm Thomas Frank Carr. Kyle left with me of Seven Mountains Media. We are talking about the blue-white game. It is coming up in about 40 minutes, and it's going to be an interesting experience. It's not on the television, of course.
It's not.
You already know that if you're a Penn State fan, and you're probably pretty annoyed about that, but we're going to try to do our best, both with the radio broadcast and, of course, at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com to give you the sounds and then the context of what's going on the field. Steve Jones is going to tell you what happened, and then we'll try and give you this is why it happened, and this is what it looked like. So I think together we do a pretty good job of that. The other part of this that I think is important is James Franklin earlier this week talked about the general outline of how this is going to go, where they're going to do skelly, which means I'm assuming they're going to be doing 7-on-7.
Okay, 7-on-7 to start.
Yeah, and then they're going to go into what's called thud, which is football minus tackling, and then they're going to go into full tackle football for the second, third, and fourth quarter, and the starters and the veterans are not going to be a part of that. So if you are going to be here and you're listening from your tailgate, make sure if you want to see Drew Aller throw some passes, then you might want to get there pretty early. But the quarterbacks on the official blue-white roster, which you can't see because it's as white as I am here, as we don't have a canopy over us today. We wanted to give you a good shot of Beaver Stadium.
This is the silhouette of it.
Yeah, kinda. Yeah, like I didn't dial in my preferences on my camera for hot then cold from the sun today, which is just all over the place. But the point I was trying to make before I got totally derailed by the weather. Drew Aller, Beckham Kritza are your blue quarterbacks, and then Ethan Grunkmeyer, Jack Lambert, and Jackson Smolik are the quarterbacks on the white team.
So when it comes to the quarterbacks, start off here, what are you watching for when it comes to not just Drew Aller, but the other four guys that are on the roster?
Yeah, so this is a quarterback battle between QB 2 and 3 for that backup job behind Drew Aller, between Jackson Smolik and Ethan Grunkmeyer. They have been close in practice. People probably don't remember a whole lot about Jackson Smolik. He was the one non-four-star quarterback they've recruited over the last couple of years, but he's a very good football player. Very underrated guy who came from Iowa and had a broken collarbone his senior season, who then worked through that. His junior season, worked through that, came back at the end of the year, and then led his team to a playoff victory coming off a broken collarbone.
Not bad.
Yeah, so there's a lot to like. He's got a stronger arm than I think people give him credit for, and we're going to get to see that as it is very, very windy here today, once again, in Happy Valley. We had this problem last year where we want to evaluate quarterbacks, we want to see them throw the football, and, if there's a 40-mile-an-hour gust and it's off target, everyone thought Drew Aller was, not just terrible, he was god-awful last year. And say what you want about Drew Aller. He was a good quarterback last year. He was not the dude you saw doing the blue-white game. That was ridiculous.
Do you think any of these quarterbacks understand wind and trajectory when they're passing the ball?
In parabolic motion and doing the math in their head?
When Kansas visiting Dorothy and Toto?
No, I don't think so. Even, Grunkmeyer's from Ohio. It gets windy up there, too. I think that there's an aspect of understanding that part of this today, which you never know what it's like inside the stadium. Also, we don't know what it's going to be like inside the stadium, because if you can't tell, half of this side is gone, which is going to affect the weather patterns, the wind, because when wind gets into a stadium, it swirls. It hits all the different trajectories, all the different angles. So I think that's going to be an interesting wrinkle in the passing game conversation today. But we started talking about Trevor Pena and the receiver room. I'm very interested to see specifically how the receiver room breaks out, who lines up in the slot, who lines up at X, who lines up at Z, because we get to see flashes of that, but most of the time we get to see one-on-one periods and just individual portions of practice. So they're going to run football formations.
Yeah.
They're going to run plays. So therefore, we're going to get a little bit of an insight into the depth chart. And, of course, I want to know all those things. I want to know all those things a month ago.
Yes.
We're going to get a chance to see some of that today on the field. So for the receiver portion of this, we're going to see the young guys for an extended period of time. There's been some bumps and bruises along the way in camp. I'm thinking specifically on the offensive line, but Josiah Brown, Liam Clifford, Aaron Enterline, Kyron Hudson, Devontae Ross, and Caden Saunders. Those are your blue team receivers. Ethan Black, Logan Cunningham, Tyser Denmark, Peter Gonzalez, Kobe Howard, Anthony Ivey, Matt Otten, and Lyric Samuel are your white team receivers. A lot of the freshmen are on that white team, where those young quarterbacks, they've been working together in passing pods, essentially groups. They've been working, that's the 2-3 squad, and then the 4s are with the starters on the blue team, kind of from the passing perspective. So this isn't necessarily as much about who's on the first team squad, who's on the second team squad, as much as these are the guys that have been working together a lot during spring practice.
You want to keep chemistry up. You want to chemistry high. If
Yes.
they work together, why not keep them together? Because in a year, Drowler's probably not going to be here. In a year,
He absolutely can't be
Hudson
anymore.
won't be here. Ross
Yeah.
won't be here. Pena won't be here.
Yeah.
So you want to see what they're going to look like together themselves, whether it's Bruckmeyer, Smolik, whomever else. I just wonder, when it comes to these receivers, the guys you're going to see on that second roster.
Yep.
What are you specifically watching for? Not just when it comes to the positional lineups, X, Y, Z, but when it comes to what they actually look like on the field.
Yeah, so I want to know what they know. I want to see confidence from a guy like Matt Otten, who's been working through a lot of new to football. He played a lot of I'm the best athlete on the field, try and stop me in high school.
A
lot of wildcat quarterback, a lot of lining up in the backfield. You love the versatility, you love the athleticism and his chance to do all of those things, but you also want him to be a wide receiver, and so he's had to learn through a lot of that this year and in this spring so far. So I'm looking for guys just being in the right place at the right time, knowing the play and making sure that when they run the route, the quarterback and they are on the same page to get to that spot. And that's with a lot of those young receivers. A guy that I think might be, now that I'm looking at it, because you got a couple of guys that have been banged up throughout practice. I don't know how much some of these guys are going to play. Hudson and Ross, again, I don't think they're going to play much past the first quarter. Aaron Enterline is a run-on player. Number 86. By the way, I'm going to try and give everyone the numbers so that everyone knows when they're watching if you're out at the tailgate. 86, Aaron Enterline. Really talented player from a physical standpoint. Maybe not all of the receiver parts are there, but he might be your blue-white game hero for all we know, from the blue team. And then, those young guys on the second squad. Tyser Denmark, everyone wants to see him. I'm curious to see where he lines up because I think I mentioned they don't have an X behind Kyron Hudson. Despite the size, I think I think that Tyser Denmark can be that guy.
And why do you think that is? Is it his skill set? Is his hands? His IQ? What about him leads you to believe he could be the guy behind Hudson?
He's tougher and he plays bigger than he is. So it's about the physicality, the jumping at the catch point, and not just how high you can jump, but can you maintain concentration through contact, which is not easy to do, and a lot of these guys have struggled with that throughout their career. I think he's got that, and then his separation ability and his ability to fight through contact. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but he's got more fight to him. And so I think he's got that inside-outside versatility. We talked to him last week, and he was primarily playing the H, which is the slot. But they need guys on the outside, and they're going to mix and match and move them all around. So I want to see how he does outside because I do think they need some answers out there, and I don't think it's coming from that freshman class that we outlined.
No, yeah, there's still question marks there. But when it does come to the freshman class, is there someone who you're interested to see how culminating uses him and applies their skills to his offense? So
it's not. The problem is it's not going to be from a scheme perspective. Yeah, that's what I really want to know, right? Yes. So I want to know that. But let's just talk about Tyke Hayes, the freshman running back. He's on the blue team. I think he's got a lot of talent. He's got the Big Ten size, and he's bigger and stronger than the guys that were here last year. Corey Smith and Quentin Martin, both hovering around. Well, Quentin Martin's around 200 pounds. Yeah. Corey Smith is bigger than he's listed. He's listed at 177. He might be in the 180s. But he's, those are guys that are naturally talented. They still need to get bigger in the weight room. And I think that Tyke Hayes, when the light comes on, he could push those guys maybe for snaps this year. That'll all play out from, spring through the camp, but that's going to be a good battle, and I want to see Tyke Hayes run behind the offensive line. We do want to speed through the offense here because we got to get to the defense, and, I got to get inside because here's the problem is normally when we do this tailgate show, there's 30, 60 minutes, 90 minutes before we get to the game. It starts at 2 and we're done at 2.
And there is also no more press box.
More press box.
We go, run with the press box, be there, hang out, because if you could see behind us, it is gone.
Yeah.
It has been gone since December.
Yeah, and of course, if you're going inside, the west side is shut down because of the construction. Most people are going to be probably sitting on the east side deck in the grandstands. But with the offensive line, Javen Williams has had a really strong spring. He's a super athletic player. He's been playing that right side. A lot of the names, if you're looking at the depth chart, they're just not going to play. Anthony Donko. I don't expect to see a lot of Nolan Rucci. We'll see a celebrity appearance from Drew Shelton, but you're really going to see those young guys. You're going to see Cooper Cousins, Owen Alcini, and Javen Williams are the three guys that I'm really looking forward to watching, and specifically Javen Williams to see what's that progress look like in pass protection, and what's that that confidence, that turning the corner of I don't have to think about the little things anymore. I can now go play football the way that he did as a freshman, or excuse me, as a senior in high school. You saw that confidence and that 5-star talent. I think you might see some of that today. I want to see a little bit of something special from him.
So you're saying we're not going to see a Vega go on a pre-snap motion and hit someone real hard?
It's on tape, so yeah, maybe. It's probably, everyone knows that happened last year, so maybe. But I doubt it. I doubt they want to kill any of the defensive backs. Yeah. I don't think they want to actually destroy anybody on their own team.
I don't think that would happen anytime soon. So the last position we haven't discussed fully, tight end. Of course, Taylor Warren left. He's now with the Colts.
Yep.
When it comes to tight end room, we kind of have some names in our heads already. Luke Reynolds, Khalil Dinkins, Andrew Rapplier. Who are we watching?
It is thin. It is thin. So I'm just reading you the depth chart. But Khalil Dinkins, he's your starter. He's your number one tight end this year. He's going to play, and then he's going to be done. And then on the blue team, it's Luke Reynolds injured, Andrew Rapplier injured, and Finn Fermanic, who is a run-on player. So you're going to see a lot of 89 today. And then on the blue squad, you got freshman Brian Kortovich. Andrew Olish has been in and out, so we might see him today. I think we'll probably get a chance to see him if I'm just guessing, just off the top of my head. Yeah. And then Joey Schlaffer, you're going to see a lot of 83 and 18 on the white squad. So I think those are the guys over there. But there's a whole bunch of names I want to talk about. I feel like James Franklin, where he's like, there's a bunch of names I want to mention. I can't get to everybody, but some of the offensive linemen, T.J. Shanahan, he's an offensive lineman they got in the transfer portal that I think is very talented. I think he's going to be a guy that is, not just a starter here eventually, but a very good starter. It's just he's got to go through the physical transformation coming from a program that doesn't have the same level of standard, on the strength side. But he's a very good football player, and when you watch him on film, he was a redshirt freshman, I want to say, that was playing center in the SEC.
It's about as tough as it gets.
It's impressive, so I think he's a guy that can play. He was primarily backing up right guard this week, so I think we're going to see him play a little bit of right guard today. And so I'm interested to watch that. Of course, there's all kinds of freshmen, and we'll get you all that stuff at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, and of course you hear about it on the radio broadcast. Some of these guys, but those are the main names I want you to keep an eye out for, and that I'm interested in looking at. But of course, everyone wants to see those freshmen and those freshman receivers. The other battle that's going on right now, and I know we mentioned a little bit earlier, but I want to shout them out again. Both these guys are very talented, and they're going to get a lot of reps today. Quentin Martin and Corey Smith. I think in the run game, they're going to primarily drive everything today. So Corey's on the white squad, Quentin's on the blue squad. We're going to see how that works today. I think the offensive line for the blue squad's a little better. It's just a little better. So, Corey's a really creative runner. I think he can fight through that adversity of maybe not getting every perfect block. But watching those two guys play and see where their development is, that's a big part of what's going on with Camp Battle this spring.
So we will see. And by the way, Owen Alcini, you mentioned him, from the great town of Cheshire, Connecticut. Yeah. I am also from. So I've got two connections on this team now. Look at that, Owen, and now Trevor Pena.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, all right. The great state of Connecticut and New England in general is well represented. There's a couple guys on the defensive side of the ball, including defensive tackle. I can't believe I forgot his name. Liam Andrews, former high 4-star defensive tackle. We're going to get a big dose of him. That's just one of the names we're going to be talking about. One of the players that we're talking about in a young defensive tackle room, seeing where they are. Critical development for this defense to play up to the level that I think fans expect of them, and that is going to be necessary for this team next year. We're talking about that on the other side here on the Penn State Football Tailgate Show on 99.5 The Bus, Bigfoot Country Legends, and the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel.
We are here on the Penn State Football Blue-White Tailgate Show. Kyle F., Thomas Frank Carr, T.
Hello.
Frank. We are here on the Blue-White Illustrated YouTube channel, 995 The Bus, 1075 The Bus, and Bigfoot Country Legends, 1037, 1043. And you mentioned a name before we went to break, Mr. Liam Andrews, the defensive side of the ball with the new defensive coordinator, Jim Knowles, at the helm.
Yep.
What are you expecting, firstly, of Knowles' defense we might see today, and then secondarily to Andrews start off?
Okay, so, Liam Andrews is kind of the representation of the young defensive tackles in general. There's a whole mess of them that we need to evaluate this spring that we've gotten to see a little bit, but that has been kind of in the background. So this is for all of our nerds out there. We're going to get real deep. We've been talking some surface level stuff, but in Jim Knowles' defense, one of the things I noticed is he had a very strict opinion of not left and right, which Penn State has done before, but 3 technique and 1 technique defensive tackle. So I want to see, are you playing 3? Are you playing 1? Are they doing that this year? What have they decided to do from that perspective? Then in the secondary, I want to see the slot. I want to see the formations. I want to see how they're rotating coverages if they do that. I want to see the safeties and how they interact with the slot corner and all the nickels and some of the things they're going to be doing up front. There are so many questions I have about this defense, and I'm going to get like 1% of the answers because not only is it football, and the first time you watch it, you can only get 1% of it, it's not on TV, so there's not going to be a replay.
No replay.
So anyway, defensive tackles, young defensive tackles. Liam Andrews, former high 4-star. The last time I saw him, he finally looked like a defensive tackle because he came in with a shoulder injury out of high school. So last year was kind of about rehabilitation of his body, making sure he was getting back into, healthy shape, and then he put on really good weight this offseason. So I want to see what his movement skills, what his confidence level is. But, there's a top 3 that James Franklin has talked about. Zane Durant, Alonzo Ford, Xavier Gillum, who's a redshirt freshman. That's a big deal that they found one guy to be in that top 3. Alonzo Ford's hurt. So, and Zane Durant's not going to be playing today. So, on the blue squad, the theme of this is you're going to get used to some of the players out there because there's a lot that aren't going to be seeing the field for a long time.
A lot
today.
Less bodies out there to be used. So you're going to see a lot more, I'm guessing, of Artis, Siafa, Owen Voffley. I believe is that his name? Is
Owen Wafel.
Wafel?
Yeah.
Okay. That.
So Xavier Gillum, I don't know if he might be a young guy that plays a lot from the starters onward,
yes.
Or he might not play all that much depending on how they view him in terms of veteran versus how much does he need to get to play today. Ty Blanding is a big day for him for evaluation for us. He's a talented player, redshirt sophomore. They need an older player to step up into that void of experience and into that void of maturity. Because everyone's in a new defense, but just because you're in a new defense doesn't mean you're new to football. And that's kind of where there is that institutional understanding of I just know how defensive tackles play and what's expected of me from my coaches, so I can then play faster and more confident. And one of those older guys has to kind of take that turn. Again, Caleb Artis been hurt, so I don't know if he's going to play for the white squad. But Randy Aderica, DeAndre Cook, and Owen Wafel, those are the 3 guys from that position you should be taking a look at. You should be getting an eyeball on to see how they're playing and how they're progressing so far in their young career. And then, just work back from there. The linebackers are a very interesting group because, again, we're looking at the blue squad. You're going to notice a theme. Dom DeLuca, he's going to play a little bit today, but then you got Tony Rojas and Dakari Nelson. Both of those guys have been injured and out this spring. I don't expect to see them today, so you're going to see a lot, and this is going to be exciting. You're going to see a lot of Anthony Specca and Keon Wiley, 2 guys we wanted to see a lot of. Anthony Specca has been having a good spring. He's a guy that is an instinctive linebacker. He was so aggressive in high school, I was like, you need to dial that back a little bit. Like, he's running around a little too much. Last year we saw him do that and be more confident and play with that aggressiveness that you'd expect from somebody who wasn't a freshman, but then he would pull himself out of position and need to recover. So I want to see just that second level of understanding and patience, but also then retaining that ability to then trigger and strike, blocks and things like that, because they're going to need somebody as that backup middle linebacker. That's
to flash and then make some mistakes. And so you might see some great stuff from him, and you might come away with this understanding that Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter. Wow.
LeVar Arrington II.
Yeah, so used to saying
Yes.
that LeVar Arrington II is like gonna start this year, and he's gonna be the next Abdul Carter, which is where I'm going with that. But there are those plays in between, and so that's going to be the part where I think that it's going to be interesting for me to watch. Is like, is he confident? Is he playing? It's kind of the same conversation. What is his understanding of football? What's his understanding of the defense and football? Because he played edge rusher in high school, so there is a lot of there are sort of issues with the
He's doing what Abdul Carter did in reverse.
Exactly.
Going from linebacker to edge, he's going from edge to linebacker.
Yes.
It's going to be a transition of position,
Yes.
transition of skill set, and in terms of understanding of where you are on the field at all times.
Yes, and so just trying to understand where that is from that perspective for LeVar Arrington II. Of sometimes I feel like I'm the wet blanket of like, I know you think he's great, I know he is going to be great, but like give him some time, because when he isn't, you're going to be mad, and so just like be excited, but don't go too far.
Yes.
Like don't go over the top with it, and you're going to get a chance to see him. He's going to run around. He's super athletic, and you're going to just enjoy that part of it, because I think football's a hard game, and I keep having that's my. If there's one tagline for this show, it's like football's a hard game.
Football's tough.
Football's tough, and so you gotta keep that in mind. And then we'll just wrap up here quickly.
The defensive backs.
With the
They're also
defensive backs.
here.
With the defensive backs, I really like the secondary for Jim Knowles. I think that's his strength. I'm excited to see how he deploys those safeties. I've been borderline obsessed with the nickel so far this year. So your outside corners are your outside corners. I think they're going to be good. They're going to be really good this year. But from that other side of things, in the slot, they're trying to figure out who's going to play there. The top two guys that were part of this, battle to begin with in the spring, Zion Tracy, King Mack, both got hurt. They're not going to be here.
I see a trend here.
Yeah, exactly. So some of the young guys have gotten a chance to. Colin Dinkins, again, might have a chance to be the big, the blue-white game hero once again. He's going to be that nickel position. The nickel is more of a safety this year than it was last year, where it was a corner. It was a cornerback position because of the injuries, KJ Winston. So I'm interested to see how the guy I'm specifically looking at, two guys, Darius Dixon and Antoine Belgrave Shorter. I think they're corners that have the ability to play this position long-term at a high level. I think that. I would like to see some of those snaps. I would like to see some of that kind of bear itself out and see kind of where they are, because it's a very difficult position. You got to be able to blitz. You got to be able to cover man, zone. You got to be able to play in the deep third. Jim Knowles went on and on about it about a week ago. And it's everything that I thought it was. And again, mental workload is one thing. Physical talent is another. And so some of these young guys, I think they've taken to him pretty well, but we need to see how some of those things work out. And it's always fun to see super athletes doing cool stuff. And I think those are the guys in this defense that can do that. And then, of course, they're going to have, I think that the way I think this is going to play out, they're going to have the Caleb Downs role from last year. So there's a couple of different ways this offense or this defense can go with hybrids. I think with Zakee Wheatley, they're going to go with that Caleb Downs role of having a quasi linebacker playing 8 yards off the ball, kind of hovering, waiting to attack in the run game, but still being able to play in coverage behind that. I'll see if I'm right. I'd love to see if I'm right.
We will see if you're right, sir.
Yeah, and that's happening soon. So actually, here on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel, I want to apologize for all the technical difficulties today. We set up, everything sounded great, and then when you go live, you just never know, especially when the wind is sucking all of the audio out of the cables.
I'm not a golfer, but I believe the wind is about 25 miles an hour.
Yeah, so I'm going to go inside right now, and of course, if you're listening on 99.5 The Bus, 107.5 The Bus, and Bigfoot Country Legends, Kyle is going to be wrapping things up here from the Tailgate Show, so we'll be back on the radio side in just 1 minute. And of course, if you're listening on the YouTube side, thank you and enjoy listening. And of course, BlueWhiteIllustrated.com if you want some insights and play-by-play about what's going on inside Beaver Stadium. We'll be back.